Okay, cool. Okay, well, since it is 10 o'clock, I guess we'll get going. So hello, everyone. And thank you for being with me today. For those on Zoom who don't know me, my name is Kate DeForest. I am the Web and Digital Content Coordinator for our campus. And today we're going to talk about some small shifts that can be made to help improve digital accessibility. And first, I have to ask, does everyone know what I mean by the term digital accessibility? Generally speaking, many people think of accessible as,
Hey,
yes.
please share your screen.
Share my screen. Oh, thank you. Ogres. Sounds. Okay, how's that?
Perfect. Yes.
Is that better? It's definitely a Monday-ish Tuesday, isn't it? All right. And we're going to see Zoom's always all kinds of in my way. There. All right, now I totally can't see Zoom at all. So if anyone wants to just shout something at me, or if Casey if there's comments in the chat that you want to share with me, please feel free to bring that to my attention. All right, so back to digital accessibility. The traditional definition of accessibility, as paraphrased from Merriam-Webster, means to basically be seen, be heard, be understood, and be reached. And that's generally what most people think of when we talk about accessibility or being accessible. The more updated inclusive version, as paraphrased from the US Department of Education, says a person with a disability and a person without a disability can have the same or similar experience in the same or similar manner. And that's what we're trying to impart on people. So that's what we're going to talk about today. My next question is anyone familiar with the book Atomic Habits? And again, I'm not looking at chat, but Atomic Habits by James Clear. This is a phenomenal book. I highly recommend it. It has nothing to do with digital accessibility per se. But in this book, James Clear says that small shifts, small shifts in mindset and behavior can have a really big impact in any area of our lives. Small shifts as little as 1% tend to be more easily implemented and more easily accepted by others. The effects of the change may not be immediately noticeable, but that builds over time and it does become very significant. And creating good systems is more important than the actual end goal. So for example, how many of us make New Year's resolutions? Like lots of people tend to make New Year's resolutions. How many of us stick to those resolutions for 365 days? Yeah, not so many. I gave up resolutions a couple of years ago for a few different reasons, but the reason that many of us don't tend to stick to the resolutions is because when we're making resolutions, we simply look at the end goal. We don't necessarily consider how it is that we're going to get there. We don't focus on that system. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. All of the quotes that I use in this presentation are from the book Atomic Habits from James Clear. And he says, the purpose of setting goals is to win the game. The purpose of building systems is to continue playing the game. And I think that that's a really important aspect for our lives. So my objectives for today are to share some tips on how to incorporate the 4 basic Atomic Habits principles into everyday workflow, everyday life. And those 4 principles are make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. And by working to implement some of these small shifts and incorporating these 4 principles, you are supporting building the system that will help improve the overall digital accessibility of this digital accessibility culture of this campus. So, number 1, make it obvious. Environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. You need to create yourself a supportive environment. If you want to start eating healthy, what's the first thing that is recommended to do? Ditch all the candy bars and cookies and snacks and junk food and put a big bowl of fresh fruit right in the middle of the table, right? Because you see the fruit, you eat the fruit, theoretically. I have a number of vitamins that I take in the morning, and those vitamin pills, the pill bottles are on top of my coffee machine, because even if I don't have a cup of coffee that day, coffee machine is one of the most prominent things in my kitchen. It's kind of big. It sits right in the middle. I look at it. I see the bottles. I take the vitamins. It's a reminder. A couple of years ago, I wanted to do some ab work, so I bought an incline sit-up bench. And I could have put the bench in the basement with my weight bench, in which case it would have gotten just as much use as my weight bench. So my sit-up bench is in my bedroom. And I use it almost every single day because it's right there in front of me. Same with digital accessibility. I use a lot of like physical real world examples, but all of this ties into digital accessibility. So just bear with me. Same with digital accessibility. Keep it at the forefront of the conversation. It should not be treated as an afterthought or an add-on. Accessibility should be considered at the beginning of projects. Now, I've had people say to me, Kate, are you telling me that I need to go back and make all of my documents that I've ever created in the history of ever accessible? Actually, they haven't said that, but I'm pretty sure that's what they're thinking. The answer to that is no. That's very unreasonable. It's not expected to go back through all of the courses that you've ever taught in the 20 years that you've been teaching or whatever. But if you can start where you are, consider this the beginning, and incorporate accessibility and think about accessibility and plan for accessibility from here moving forward, that's going to push the needle 1%, and that's going to help progress. Practice accessibility daily. What do I mean by this? There are simple ways to incorporate accessibility. Emails is a really good example. Now, email is a little bit different than document and web accessibility just because of the functionality of the platforms. But when you write an email, there are ways to have a very specific subject line. You can embed links within your email, so you're not typing out the whole HTTPS, blah, blah, blah. If you have a long email, use paragraphs, maybe even separate it with like a heading type line. So there's ways that you can incorporate accessibility into your everyday workflow. That's what I'm talking about when I say practice accessibility daily. Put these things at the front of your mind and do what you can to incorporate them. Now, if you want to gather up your department, if you want to help advocate for accessibility within a group, people don't want extra meetings on the table. So first of all, thanks to all of you in Zoom who have showed up today, because this is basically an extra meeting for a lot of people. Think about all the opportunities that are already in place on our campus and on your calendar. We have like regular department meetings, right? There's directors meetings. There's regular committee meetings. There's lots of opportunities that are already there. We just need to take advantage of those. So you can have as little as 10 or 15 minutes of an introduction to what digital accessibility is, why it's important, and who it benefits. Throw that into your regular department meeting. You already have a captive audience. Those people are already there. And now you're putting that information out in front of others. So when we're asking people to learn something new, we don't want to have to ask them to go far out of their way to do it, because chances are then they won't do it. So we try to incorporate it as much as possible and as often as possible with the regular goings on that we already have going on. Number 2, make it attractive. We can find evidence for whatever mindset we choose. Now, I didn't look at all of the participants on Zoom, and I only have one person in the room. So that's why I keep referring to everyone on Zoom, because the majority of everybody is online. I'm going to share a little secret with everybody. Don't judge me on this. And if anybody out there knows me, it might come a bit of a surprise. But when I was a kid, I was just a little bit of a brat. And when my parents would go somewhere, my family went somewhere and I didn't want to go, I'd kind of let my parents know. And I'd say things like, none of my friends are going to be there. It's going to be so stupid. I'm going to be bored. I don't have anything to do. I really don't want to go. It's not going to be fun, like every excuse in the book. And my father used to say to me, of course, you're not going to have any fun if you don't want to. And it took me a very embarrassingly long time, like until my 30s probably, to really fully understand what that statement meant. And to recognize that my attitude about the thing, whatever it was, before I even got there, my attitude was dictating how I felt about that thing. So making accessibility attractive comes down to need to versus want to. In the book Atomic Habits, there's a fantastic little example of a man in a wheelchair who was once asked, is it difficult to be confined by your wheelchair? Most of us see people in wheelchairs, and if we don't have a wheelchair, we're like, oh, that must be really hard. They're confined by that wheelchair. And this man answered, I'm not confined by my wheelchair. My wheelchair liberates me. If I didn't have my chair, I would be bedbound. So my wheelchair allows me to leave the house. It's all in your perspective. It's all in your wording, and proper wording can set a good mindset for accessibility. So I know for quite a while on this campus, when we first started talking about digital accessibility, the emphasis was you need to. Letters would be sent or emails would be sent to faculty members that would say something along the lines of, you have a student in your course who's requiring an accommodation. You need to make your materials more accessible. Big surprise. People don't like to be told what to do. So there was pushback on that. People didn't understand accessibility. People didn't like to be told what to do. There was this random person, me, who was in their Blackboard course and they didn't know why, and it was very upsetting. So the work group on accessibility practices has since tried to flip that narrative on its head. And we have really worked to use more sort of inclusive and friendly wording to help set the mindset for the people that we speak with, for other people on campus. So if you shift the perspective, change the wording, then you can change the outlook. It's negative implications versus positive implications. By changing your wording and making a more positive, inclusive environment, you're creating a welcoming environment for others and that they want to be a part of. As human beings, we tend to strive to want to be part of something more than ourselves. That's why they have book clubs and running clubs and bowling leagues and motorcycle clubs and, knitting clubs and all the other clubs under the sun, because we want to have that community. We want to be part of that. There are a number of different champions for accessibility here on campus, and we are working really hard to create that same kind of welcoming environment, that sort of accessibility club, if you will, here on campus that other people want to be a part of. Focus on the benefits of digital accessibility. Many people think of accessibility as being specifically beneficial to people with disabilities. That is just not true. Fake news all the way. Accessibility features can benefit people experiencing temporary, situational, or permanent disabilities, as well as people with no disabilities at all. My extent of disabilities is that I wear contact lenses and I am directionally deficient. So I need a GPS in my car if I don't know where I'm going. And whenever we turn the TV on in my house, captions go on. None of us that live in that house have a hearing impairment, but every time the TV goes on, the captions go on. Every single one of us on this call today use digital accessibility features somehow, in some way, probably every day. Some other examples are the automatic doors at the grocery store. Automatic doors at the grocery store were not created for someone like me who has full mobility. However, when was the last time you didn't use the automatic doors at the grocery store? Curb cuts, the little dip in the sidewalk curb, right? When was the last time you walked around a curb cut to step up on the curb? All of us use curb cuts. I just read an article, I think it was on LinkedIn. I read an article about the OXO Good Grips potato peeler. And I don't know if you all are familiar with this, but Good Grips have big fat handles on them. And the story that I read was a retired businessman and his wife were cooking dinner one night, and his wife has arthritis, and she was having a very difficult time with those tiny little 1970s and 80s metal potato peelers. Does anyone remember those? She had arthritis and she couldn't use this little potato peeler because it was too skinny. So this retired businessman somehow came up with this plan and developed these big fat handles and marketed it or sold it or whatever to OXO Good Grips. And instead of simply marketing this thing to people with arthritis, OXO marketed it to everyone. So now given the choice, if I have a tiny little metal potato peeler or a big fat OXO Good Grips peeler, I'm going to use the big fat one. I don't have arthritis, but it's still easier to use. So it's good for everyone. It benefits everybody. And again, the same with digital accessibility. If you work to remove any potential barriers from your digital content, you are helping people with disabilities, but you are also making it easier for everyone to consume your digital content without necessarily thinking about how they are consuming it. It just makes it a better experience, which then makes the content creator the good guy. You're the superhero of the story because you're not creating a negative, bad experience for people. And sometimes it's better to not be remembered than to be remembered in a negative light, right? So if you can remove those barriers, people can consume your content and not really think about it, and you're the good guy. All right, atomic habit number 3, make it easy. If you want to master a habit, the key is to start with repetition, not perfection. You want to build the system. And this is kind of what we're talking about. How many people have learned an instrument? Have you ever learned a musical instrument, Jessica?
Trombone.
Trombone, excellent. I used to play violin and piano. I have kids who played piano. Many of us have either learned an instrument or have children who have learned an instrument. Do you break out Beethoven and Bach when you first start learning? Chances are no. You start with scales and Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star ad nauseum until you just want to curl up in a hole and die. The reason is because that's setting the skill set. It's teaching your fingers and your muscles how to play that particular thing. You're building the system of how to be better. Once you master those things, then you can move on to something else, and then you move on to something else, and eventually you get to Beethoven and Bach, maybe. The same concept with running a 5K. If you want to run a 5K and you've never run before, chances are you don't jump up off the couch and go stand at the starting line. You start with a couch to 5K program. You build up, right? You walk for a little bit, you get your body used to it, then maybe you jog for a little bit longer, then you hit that 3-mile point, you work up to it. Now this point, doing 1 sit-up a day, I kind of laugh at this one. Doing 1 sit-up a day is not going to impact your overall wellness. It's certainly not going to get you abs of steel anytime soon, right? But by doing 1 sit-up a day, you're training your brain that that's an essential part of your daily routine. And once it becomes a habit, then we add on to it. We build from there. So how are habits formed? Anybody? How are habits formed?
Isn't it something like you do something over and over again for like at least 2 weeks, or
Do something
like that?
repeatedly.
Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly it. You do something repeatedly. So we all form habits all the time, whether we realize it or not, whether the habit is good for us or not. We're constantly forming habits by doing the same thing again and again. Same can be true for digital accessibility. Again, start with one aspect at a time, break it down, focus on one aspect at a time, do that thing again and again and again until it becomes a habit, until you don't have to think about it anymore. And then you add on to it. Progress over perfection. Again, when we first started introducing digital accessibility on this campus, people saw this huge insurmountable mountain. And that was the point where I was getting you want me to do all this accessibility stuff to all the stuff I've ever created in the history of ever? Like, no, take it one step at a time. There are 5 basic principles that we focus on here at Oswego. And that is identifying content or structured content, which is basically headings and lists and that type of thing. Alternative text, which is identifying pictures, using color contrast, embedding links, and plain and clear language. Those are the 5 individual aspects that we that we really start with, that we try to focus on. Taking one of those 5 individually is very simple to understand. It's not very difficult to implement, and it's much more easily manageable and more easily digestible than when you try to look at everything all together. So again, repetition can lead to efficiency. If you take one aspect at a time and you focus on just doing that thing, it becomes easier for you. It becomes a habit. For example, adding headings into a document. Headings in a Microsoft Word document and Google document is one click on a drop-down menu. That's all it is. That's how you style headings. It's one click on a drop-down menu. So if you put it in your head to add styled headings into your document every time you make a new document, pretty soon you get to the point where you open up a document and the first thing you do is add a heading 1. So if you take one aspect at a time and focus on doing one thing really well, that's going to push the needle 1%. That's going to help keep you moving in the right direction. Which leads into the next point. Accessibility is a continual process. There's no 100% accessible to 100% of the people 100% of the time. That is also fake news. Will not happen. But we can strive to be 1% better than what we were last month or last semester or last quarter. 1% more accessible can have a big difference in how someone consumes your digital content. And number 4, make it satisfying. Pleasure teaches your brain that a behavior is worth remembering and repeating. Now, this one, I will admit, is the most tricky of the 4 to implement in terms of digital accessibility. If anyone has participated in any of our January accessibility challenges, there was one held in January of 21, and there was another one held in January of 22. If anyone participated in those, the work group on accessibility practices who put together those 2 challenges unknowingly implemented the first 3 atomic habits. We made it obvious. We sent daily emails that had all of the information people needed to know. We made it attractive. That's when we really started to flip the wording and be more engaging and inviting rather than saying you need to do this. And we made it easy. We focused on one aspect at a time and asked people to just learn that one thing each day. Well, then I started reading this book after we did those challenges. And I was like, oh, hey, wait, we've already been doing this. So now we need to come up with a way, Casey, I have some ideas that we can implement, make it satisfying for digital accessibility and make it sort of a fun experience. The challenge was a good way to start, a good first way. As an example for this, we have immediate versus delayed gratification. Our brains are hardwired to prioritize immediate rewards over delayed rewards, which is why it's a whole heck of a lot easier to sit on the couch and binge watch Netflix while eating a box of donuts than it is to go to the gym and work out, or even go to the bedroom. Like, I don't even go to the gym. I work out in my own bedroom, and sometimes that's a struggle because eating donuts tastes good now, right? Going to the gym, working out, you work out for a half an hour, you work out for 4 hours, you're not going to see any difference. It's a future goal. It's a delayed reward. So we tend to focus on rewards for our present self versus rewards for our future self. Well, if we eat enough boxes of donuts, our present self is going to be super happy, but our future self is going to be a little bit of a hot mess after that, right? So we have to kind of trick ourselves and provide rewards for the mini goals. We have to set, as part of that system, we have to set mini goals for ourselves along the way and then provide rewards for those. So our brain says, oh yeah, we're happy. This is fun. We did this. That's a good thing. So making small, immediate rewards for yourselves. And again, we need to work on implementing these on the campus, but these are some brainstorm ideas that I had that I think anyone could try to use. Incentivize practicing, right? As I mentioned, using headings in documents and and focusing on accessible emails and that sort of thing, you can make a little bargain with yourself, right? Reward yourself. If you can make 5 documents more accessible than what they were, then you can eat a candy bar or whatever it is that makes you happy. You can incentivize for students or for classes, add extra credit if they make things accessible, or added it just in as part of the requirements for turning in papers for any classes that require papers being turned in. Have the accessibility measures part of those requirements. Make sure that your font is at least 12 points, make sure there are styled headings included, make sure all of your links are embedded in the text, not written out. So those kinds of little things can help incentivize and can help make it fun. Find a partner, found an accountability partner. It is statistically proven that goals are reached, and I forget what it is, it's like 65%, I think, or something like that. Goals are reached more often and more consistently if you have an accountability partner to do things with. There are lots of various champions on campus, as I mentioned, all of the work group members. We have the digital IT steering committee on digital accessibility. We also have faculty fellows. And you can just find someone in your own department or find a friend that is starting this journey and say, hey, I really want to do this. I'd like to start making my documents more accessible, but I know I'm going to lose track of things. Why don't we do it together? Set aside a couple hours every week, maybe, to sit down with this person and work on accessibility, you know, very purposefully, ask each other questions, reach out to others and find out information. Again, you're not in this alone. So there's lots of people that you can reach out to and ask. But having that additional person, having that partner kind of helps motivate you, helps cheer you on, helps kind of keep you in the groove and keep you on track of things. Likewise, if you want to bring in the department or even just a small group of people, engage in a friendly little competition. You know, everybody pitch in $10 and buy an Amazon gift card and have that be the ultimate prize or something. And then say whoever spent the most time making things accessible or whoever has the least amount of errors in their document when we run it through an accessibility check, that person will be considered the winner and they get the whatever reward it is. And again, just to reiterate, you are the superhero. Lots and lots and lots of times when we talk about accessibility, and this isn't just on this campus. I've heard at conferences, it's like all over campuses. The basic pushbacks are people say, we don't have time. We don't have personnel. We don't have time. I don't have the resources. I can't do this. By taking just 1% increments and by doing just one little thing at a time, adding headings into a document makes a document immensely more accessible than it was without them. So even taking those very small, minuscule steps can help improve the accessibility, and that helps push the needle. That's what helps move it forward 1%. And again, you are the superhero. You, the content creator, are responsible for your own content, and you become the good guy by reducing the amount of barriers that's in that content, therefore providing a better experience for people trying to use the content. So unfortunately, I can't provide you with any sort of big cape or like a parade or, you know, anything like that, but you're the good guy doing the right thing to help other people. So in conclusion, success is not a goal to reach or a finish line to cross. It is a system to improve, an endless process to refine. And this just kind of reiterates much of what I've said previously. There is no finish line. Okay, we have our goal of making the campus more accessible. We will never be 100% accessible to 100% of the people 100% of the time. That's an irrational, not reasonable goal. But we can strive to be 1% more accessible than what we were previously. And in order to do that, we need to shift our approach to it. Because again, we're not just shooting for that end goal and like, okay, my documents are accessible, I'm done, I'm out, peace, I don't have to do anything else. If you set yourself a goal to lose 50 pounds, which is a significant amount of weight, right? Once you get to that benchmark, you can't just turn around and go back and sit on the couch and binge watch and start eating donuts again, right? Because you're going to completely lose all the progress that you made. So to maintain that new lifestyle that you've discovered, you have to shift your approach to how you eat and to how you exercise. You have to be very intentional with it. The same is true for digital accessibility. You have to be very intentional about how we approach accessibility, putting it at the forefront of the conversations, having it be right out in front of us so it's nice and obvious, making it nice and attractive for people, making it a welcoming environment, having things done easily so it's not overwhelming and confusing for people, and then make it satisfying, make it fun. This is a good thing that we're all endeavoring to do together. And again, just 1% shifts helps push everything in the right direction. It's not just a set it and forget it kind of thing, okay, which is basically what I just said, very long-windedly. It always has to be manipulated, it always has to be massaged, it always has to be reviewed. So if your documents are accessible, you make your syllabus for next semester accessible, make all your course materials for next semester accessible, that's great. The next time that course comes around, I would suggest reviewing all those documents. Check the links. That's the big one. I've remediated a lot of courses, both online and documentation, where the links are just dead. So you need to go back and double check that. That's problematic for pretty much everybody, not just people with disabilities, but dead links are problematic for everyone. So you always need to be refining, always need to be reviewing and checking. Just even if it's just a quick glance, click through the links, make sure everything works the way it's supposed to. And then you can move on. Compare notes with others. Again, going back to the partnership that I talked about, the accountability partner. There's a fairly large and growing community of accessibility advocates on this campus. There are plenty of people who can help you through things, who can answer questions, who can point you in the right direction if we don't know the answer specifically. So you want to always be comparing notes with others. Don't be afraid to talk about accessibility. And if you notice something that someone else has done that may cause lots of accessibility problems, don't be afraid to reach out to them and say, hey, I saw your syllabus or whatever it was. I think we might be able to improve that a little bit. And I've got some tips how. So can we sit down together and maybe work on that? I can show you how to do some things. Investing in the digital accessibility culture is extremely important, and it should be, well, it should be super important to everyone, but on this campus, I don't know if everyone is aware of this, but in 2017, SUNY Oswego faced a complaint from Office of Civil Rights. We got called out because some of our web pages were inaccessible. And at the time, we didn't know that we were doing anything wrong. So we fixed the problem, and then we became very proactive. Okay. 0 out of 10 do not recommend having a complaint from OCR called out against you. How do we avoid doing that? Which is why we are now considered one of the leaders within the SUNY system for digital accessibility, because we've been very proactive and we've been very fortunate to have higher administration that supports that to continue pushing our efforts forward. That does not mean that we are exempt from another lawsuit. So we can't just get to a place and be like, okay, we're good with that. Our website is fine. It doesn't need to make any more improvements. We can't get complacent on it. We need to constantly be checking things, constantly be reviewing things, constantly moving forward. And finding the little 1% of resources from various places to invest in the digital accessibility culture, because I honestly believe it's not a question of if, but a matter of when another lawsuit or complaint might come against us. And if we approach digital accessibility with that thought that that could happen, so we're going to take all these steps to prevent that from happening. If it does happen in the future, then we are in a much better place to resolve that complaint as opposed to getting blindsided. And I think the most important question that an organization can ask itself, or for that matter, any individual person can ask themselves, is what is the cost of not changing? There's always a cost to change. right? The pushback, I don't have time, I don't have energy, I don't have the motivation, I don't understand, I don't know how to do this. There's always a cost to implement something new. There's always a cost to change. And you have to consider, what is the cost of not changing if we just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again? Does anyone have any questions or comments? I do want to mention that there is one more accessibility session coming up. That is this afternoon with Michael Chanis at 1 o'clock here in Library Classroom 101, accessibility for the inaccessible. I will also mention my email address is kathleen.deforest@oswego.edu. Our accessibility website, which I highly encourage everyone to visit, is oswego.edu/accessibility. There are lots of good tips. There are tutorials, written tutorials, video tutorials, lots of information, some templates. I did add a checklist as well. We have these lovely little cards that I brought, but no one showed up. So no one gets, well, Jessica, you can have all of the lovely little cards. But I added the information on those to the accessibility website on the basic principles page. So you can use that, you can print it if you'd like, and you can use that as just a basic checklist. They have the 5 principles that I mentioned. And it gives you some tips on how to incorporate those 5 principles. So whoops, I didn't want to do that. Okay, we're going to stop sharing for now so I can look at chats. So thank you all for being here. And I hope that you go to check out the website, accessibility website. I hope you get lots of information from it. And let's see, digital accessibility in action. Casey says the simple cost not to incorporate the simple things. It's likely to be someone needing to fix all of your content at the last point. Yep. And my previous position, I did a lot of course remediation, and that person was me. Like, we need this remediated now. It takes time to remediate things, and it's a lot easier to add accessibility in at the beginning rather than going back and trying to fix it at the end. Okay, no other comments, questions? I appreciate all of you. Thanks for being here. Feel free to reach out if you have any further questions. I know I've already worked with a couple of you, so feel free to reach out if you have any other questions and comments and run into problems. All right. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day.
And you can just hit stop. Perfect.